Welcome to this week's podcast episode. I brought on Wren. Luke, welcome.
Thank you so much, Heather.
I'm so honored to have you. I met Luke a few months ago, and he is part of the Tony Robbins crew, but he moderated a program I went to that was 3 days, and I was like, damn, Luke's got it going on.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate that. Appreciate the compliment. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. If you want to give a little background, where do you live and what do you do?
Okay. Well, I'm from actually Minnesota originally, and now I live in Siesta Key, Florida with my wife, Katie, and daughters, Lake and Faith. Lake's 1 and Faith is 15. And what do? I always tell people, I've been doing the same thing for over 20 years now, changing lives. I've done it many different ways. I've owned health clubs, weight loss centers, chiropractic clinics, partnered in many different businesses, usually to have to do with health, but now that's expanded a little bit into some more industries. But I speak and facilitate around the world. I'm very fortunate to share the stage with many of the top influencers in the world nowadays. And, proximity is power. So I figure if I hang around them long enough, a few things will rub off, right? And then I also coach a couple executives and business owners. I usually only work with about 7 or 8 clients max, anywhere from 5 to 8, exclusive clients where help them turn around the business or turn around whatever they're looking to turn around.
Well, and what you shared with me, and I loved it. So you used to be a personal trainer and you did that for years. But unlike a lot of personal trainers that just give you exercises or nutrition, you did something more than that and had a wait list. So what was that? What did you teach your clients?
No, I remember you asking me, how long have I been coaching? I'm like, well, since I was 7 years old. I watched my grandfather, Charles, die of cancer. And I just remember him saying, Lucas, you don't have anything if you don't have your health. And that's what kind of drove me down the health path right away. But, at the age of 7, I was buying the Jack LaLanne book and Born in the USA and coaching anybody I could on how they could be healthier. You don't want to get cancer and all these different things. And remind me again, what was the question? How did I coach people? Yeah. So when I worked with people on health, it wasn't just, so many trainers get stuck in the way of, it's about the perfect workout. I make the most amazing workout, or, oh gosh, it's all about the nutrition. I'm going to give you all the nutrition. But most people forget to help people detox their mind and coach the person. And, I would give them a workout and a nutrition program. That was a no-brainer. You were a personal trainer. But what I'd do is I'd really coach the person. I'd help them detox their mind and help them with their mindset and coach them as a person while I put them through a workout. And that's what worked really good for me as a trainer. And, even at the age of 19, I had a wait list of people, more people wanted to train with me than what I had time because I got so many referrals. Because it was so different. So many people make it about the workout and the nutrition program, but without the right mindset, you're not going to continue to do any workout or nutrition program long term. To create lasting change, you really got to make sure that person is making the commitment with their mind and that they have the right tools and strategies to continue on.
Well, and we're approaching the new year. It's not far out. And is that why so many people fail and get off the wagon? Because well, one, they're normally biting off more than they can chew, right? Like setting these ridiculous goals where you can't run a marathon if you haven't even been running 1 mile. But yeah, without that correct mindset, I mean, the food and nutrition is huge, right? And the exercises, but without figuring out the foundation, you have nothing to work from.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody out there that says, I want to set a New Year's resolution to fail. I don't think there's anybody out there that sets a goal and says, you know what, I hope I come up short this year. Everybody has good intentions. I don't believe there's bad humans. I believe there's bad behaviors or, people get stuck in a rut. When it comes to fitness, I've seen so many people struggle over the years because they make it about the next great diet, the next great workout, or they go and hire a trainer that literally, just gives them a workout or a nutrition program. And I do believe a lot of people fall short in, even if they get goals in the short term. I always told people it's not about losing your weight. It's about never having to lose it again. It's not about getting as fit as you can possibly be. It's about staying as fit as you can possibly be. And it's not about getting there. It's about staying there. And why do all that hard work to go backwards? And that's what we see in health and fitness, right? Is people lose their weight, they get their peak health, and then it drops off, and then they get their peak health, and then it drops off, which we all know is more unhealthy than just staying unhealthy all the time, right? Or just slightly healthier. And I believe that all has to do with mindset and beliefs. And, there might be some inner conflicts, there might be some holdbacks. And if a person gets at those and that it becomes part of their identity and belief, and part of their identity and belief is wrapped around where they want to be physically, where they want to be mentally, and where they want to be emotionally, that it's more of a lasting change.
Yeah, and that's why I believe those fads, and I don't even like the word diet, it's not sustainable. So it's about creating a lifestyle.
Yes. Like people go, well, what do you think about this diet? What do you think about that diet? And I go, well, if you do them all, they all work. But what for you is a balance, and I hate using, like you said, I hate using the word diet. Diet just means what you consume, right? I like using the word nutrition even more than diet, because people think of diet and they can list off 5 or 10 books, 5 or 10 programs, right? And they all work if you follow them, but you got to go, nothing trumps eat live foods, live more, eat dead foods, die more. Like every decision we make, if we put a dead food in our mouth, we're moving towards death. If we put a live living food in our mouth, we're moving towards life. And, because so many people over the years have told me, well, I don't know what to do. You got to tell me what to do. I said, come on, if I had a super soaker here and you were sat in a chair in front of 100 people and I told you that I'm going to drench you if you don't tell me what you need to do, I'm sure you'd come up with solutions, something to the fact of I'm going to move a little bit more and I'm going to eat a little bit better. And well, I don't know what to eat. I'm sure you could list off 10 things you would need to stop eating and 10 things you should start eating. And people try to overcomplicate it, because when we say we don't know, it allows us to feel good about not taking action. But really, when you break it down, health is a very simple thing, right? I mean, I don't know what to do to move. Could you walk? Like, could we start there?
Well, and what you talked about, mainly everything's about mindset. And like, as Tony says, 80% psychology. And what we really want to dive into is the broken system that 90% of the people are stuck in this conditioning and the bullshit stories. But like, what are those top 3 to 5% doing that we want to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any argument nowadays. I think if somebody doesn't realize that the system that we're being fed is broken, they're delusional, or they just don't want to be honest about it, right? I mean, everybody's been taught, go to school, get a job, work hard. And we know nowadays that people are doing that and it's not working for them. It's just at the mastermind, a mastermind in August with Robert Kiyosaki, and he said the exact same thing. He goes, Luke, I love to stir up people's beliefs, because what most people have been taught doesn't work anymore. What we're teaching kids in school doesn't, we're in the school system. Why would we not teach financial literacy and teach people how to balance a checkbook and manage debt and earn interest instead of pay interest, like life skills? But we're teaching them things that are in 30-year-old textbooks, where technology is exponentially growing, and it's going to grow more. Technology is going to accelerate more in the next 10 years than we've seen in the last 100. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how much it changed in the last decade, but it's going to geometrically grow over the next 10 years, even beyond what it has the past 10. And, I think for most people, there's just a few things that if they focus on that and they're open, I know before we started the call, you were talking about how somebody can be closed to an idea, closed to this. And what the danger is in being closed is you're not open to new possibilities. You're not open to what lies in front of you. You're not open to learn new things. And it's like John Wooden always says, is what you learn after you think you know everything, that's really important. The most important stuff is what you learn after you think you know everything. Because once you think you know everything, the danger in that is you stop growing, and growth is really the juice of life.
Well, and can we dive into, like, how do you break free of that societal, the conditioning because for some people, the unknown or to be different than is really scary. And so they just stay in that rut. I call it Groundhog Day, or living in that hamster wheel. So how do you break free and join, the Richard Bransons and LeBron James? How do you join those guys?
Well, number one, I think most people think there's something special about another person they admire, or when they look at a LeBron James or a Richard Branson, or even just somebody in your life, anybody listening to this podcast or that watches this podcast is going to think about somebody they admire. And if you're thinking about somebody you admire, think about, a big celebrity. Okay. Then think about somebody a little bit smaller. Then think about a personal friend that you admire. And it doesn't matter which one of those three you're thinking about. You think, oh my gosh, they have something. Gosh, if I only had that. And I think the first step is people need to realize that each one of us has greatness in us. There's nothing different in any human, that every human has greatness within them. I truly believe that every person with a pulse has greatness in them, and they need to understand that they need to develop and grow that. I think so many people get caught in the broken system, and they just, they get in the box, they go to the box, they learn in the box, they drive in the box, they eat out of the box, they get home, they stare at the box, and eventually we die and they bury us in a box, right? And people never break out of that box. And I think the first thing to answer your question about breaking out of that box is to realize that if you're listening to this podcast, if you have the wherewithal these days to go, what can I listen to that inspires me, that helps me grow? That's proof that there's something great inside of you. There's something that you have to discover. And if you've already been blessed enough to discover it, that you need to grow that you need to develop that and go share that with the world. And that when somebody discovers and some people might go, gosh, I don't know what it is. What is it about you that some of your friends have told you in the past that they really love or admire or like about you, whatever that is, and you just blew it off? We all have that one thing. And if we haven't discovered that yet, you just need to do some soul searching and journaling about going, what kind of comes easy to me that everybody wishes they could do? What types of things light my soul on fire? What skill or strategy or service or energy do I have that I could share with other people and add value to their lives? Because we all have that, some people call it X factor or greatness or whatever it is. And our goal is to discover what that is and share it with the world. And that's where you see some of these successful people and you go, but it doesn't even seem like they're working, like they're just having fun because they're living in their greatness. And nowadays there's so many influences. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm glad, because you're not scrolling a damn social media page worrying about what everybody else is doing. So many people that I talk to nowadays are so worried about what everybody else is thinking. And that deteriorates your greatness because other people aren't going to pay your bills. Other people aren't going to make your life amazing. Other people aren't going to better your relationships. You are. And that when we discover our greatness and we focus on developing that and becoming more of who we are and discovering what our true identity are, what our true beliefs are, and we grow us and we develop that greatness, the less we're influenced by other people. And if you think about the people you admire, they're not influenced easily by other people. They're them. They focus on what they do and why they do it and how they're going to do it, and they go do it. So the more you focus on your greatness, the less other people worry you at all, and the less likely you're going to conform to the system because you're like, hey, I got this to share with the world. I'm going to go share it. I don't care if it fits the system or in the box. And you're going to realize all the energy in life once you go after your greatness and discovering your greatness and building your greatness and sharing your greatness, you'll realize all the juice in life, Heather, is outside that box. There's no fun living in a box, driving in a box, going to a box, or dying in a box. There is fun in breaking out of that box and unleashing your soul on the world.
And I think another thing we can call this box is your comfort zone. So the moment you step outside of your comfort zone, that's where the magic begins.
Yeah, so many people, they're like, oh gosh, that's a little bit crazy, or that I get so uncomfortable, or I get a little bit nervous, or and the thing is, your comfort can kill you. If you think about it, we've all heard the analogy of the frog, right? You put it in you put it in a pot of water and you slowly turn up the temperature, it gets comfortable, and its comfort cooks it. But if you take a frog and you drop it in a boiling pot of water, it hops out immediately. Meaning that all the growth, all the excitement, growth is life. If you're listening to this, write that one down. I got that from my good mentor, Tony Robbins. And growth is life, because when we're growing, we feel alive. Think about right now, everybody, just think about three times that you just felt alive and juiced and energized. Chances are it was in a moment of growth and complete uncomfort. I went skydiving once in Mexico, and they said, don't grab the pole. We wouldn't be able to probably get your hand off the pole if you decided to hang on to it. It would be banging on your arm. So I just jumped out of the plane. We were tumbling out of the plane. The guy goes, you just went for it. And as we're jumping out of the plane, even though, it wasn't like I wasn't fearful, but man, when you're falling out of the sky, there's some adrenaline going. You feel completely alive. And you're going, I hope this parachute opens as well. But it's in those fearful moments, but you go anyways, that you feel more alive than any other time. And so for anyone, I would encourage you to go, how can you get a little bit more uncomfortable every day? And then how could you get in proximity or schedule things that would get you in complete discomfort? Whether that's, if you're afraid of heights, great, climb a pole and do a pole jump. If you're afraid of heights, maybe schedule a skydive and realize it isn't that bad. Face your fears. I love that Will Smith was afraid of heights. And he said, if I fear something, then I must do it. And he goes, I would drive and run right into fear, because I'm not going to let fear run me. Either fear uses you or you use fear. And nowadays you hear so many people going, oh, I'm afraid of that, or I'm worried, or I have anxiety. And those are all made up things when people are letting fear run them. And it's time for you, instead of fear using you, for you to use fear. That when you step into the fear, you step into the uncomfort, that you're going to grow more and do more and become more than you ever thought possible. And that's truly greatness.
I went skydiving this summer because I've learned to let fear fuel me. So when I get that pit in my stomach, I use it as adrenaline. I'm like, fuck yes, I'm doing this. And I remember skydiving, I was such a shit talker on the ground. I was like, I want to do a backflip out, and then we're flying up, and we weren't even halfway. And I looked down, and I was like, are we there yet? And that's when they're like, oh, we're not even halfway. And thank heavens it's tandem, because he just threw us out, right? Like I didn't get to say yes or no. He just threw us out. And then, but that free fall, and then it's like, it's liberating, right? So the free fall, and then it's like, what else can I accomplish?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you face your fears, that's exactly what you think. If I could do that, what else could I do? Yeah. And you start building more and more muscle of facing your fears.
Well, then, so what are some tips for, I'm all about a morning routine. I think that is what starts your day and gets the momentum. But what are some tips or takeaways that listeners can be like, all right, so I'm ready to get outside of my comfort zone. Where do I begin?
Well, I think after you go after your greatness and get out of your comfort zone, the next step is exactly that. What's your next step? So many people get derailed by thinking 5 or 7 steps down the road, like, oh, I don't know how to do that, jumping out of an airplane. How they're like, you and Luke are crazy. Their eyes are bugging out of their head and stuff. And okay, well, maybe it's climb a ladder. Maybe it's whatever. What can you do today to move closer to that? What can you do now? What's your next step? What's something small that you could do as soon as you're done listening to this podcast or watching the recording of this, that you could do now? Like, don't delay. When would now be a good time? What is the next step for you? So many people are great, like we just talked about New Year's resolutions just a little bit ago. So many people are going, oh, here's what I want to do over the year, but they forget on the second day, what's the next step? And then 90% of the resolutions are gone by the second of the month, because we get so excited about what we want a year from now, or dreaming about what we want 10 years from now, and just go, what is the next step? Don't get tied up in the complexity of like, oh my gosh, that's so far off. If I were to do one thing right now to move closer to that, what is it? Next step. If I were to do one thing right now to move closer to that, what is it? What's my next step? And it's just, if people just take a step a day, if everybody listening to this podcast takes one step every day towards a goal, towards a dream, towards something important to them, you're 365 steps closer 1 year later. Most people would hit their annual goals in a quarter if they did this, but most people take a step, I don't know, I got this in the way and that in the way, and they come up with excuses. And what if your excuses became your reasons? What if your excuses to not do something became your reasons to do it? If you don't have the time, when are you ever going to have the time? If you don't have the money, when are you ever going to have the money? When you need to take a step every single day. And I think that's the number one thing for people. I'd love to give you a magic potion, everyone, but it's truly about, if you look at successful people, they're not doing complicated things. They're doing a few simple fundamental things day after day after day that the average person does sporadically. If somebody's successful at something, it's because they did something daily that other people do sporadically. The reason most people aren't successful is they're not willing to do those few 3, 5, or 7 things day after day after day after day after day. And that's what the truly people that become great and you admire are doing, some fundamental things day after day after day. They're always taking a step, because when you take a step every single day, you're progressing. And if all you do is progress and grow every day and challenge yourself and get outside your comfort zone and step into your greatness, you're going to grow. And as long as you're growing consistently every single day, instead of on, off, we're not meant to be blinkers. We have a pulse. We're meant to be on all the flipping time. So that would be my second step. Just what's your next step, and take it.
Well, and then the third,
one step at a time. Nobody ever jumped to the top of the staircase. I mean, you can be a CrossFit fanatic. You can maybe jump 4 stairs, but you can't jump to the top of the staircase. You can't jump a flight of stairs. So you just got to take the next step.
Yes. And the third step you shared with me is about being you, be your authentic self. And I think that's especially when the social media world, hey, there are pros and cons to everything. And social media is great for connecting, like connecting us. But there's also, when you get stuck in that comparison and judgment trap, LeBron's not trying to be Michael Jordan. He's LeBron and killing it.
Exactly. Nowadays it's more important than ever. And I hope that people, as you listen to this, that every one of you understands that your greatest power is just being you. And that so many people worry about what others think. And when you're basing decisions on what you believe other people are going to think of that, you're being somebody else. And to be somebody you're not is to waste the person you are. And I'll say that again. To be somebody you're not is to waste the amazing person you are. And all we can do is be ourselves. And when you truly focus on just being you, who are you? What's your identity? What are your beliefs? What are your values? And you live congruently in who you believe you are, and you build that every day. And some people go, well, gosh, I just worry about what other people think. Well, it's just like a muscle. We talked about New Year's resolutions and working out, or back in the days when I did personal training when I was 17. And when you go to the gym and you pick up the weight, you build muscle. And so many times nowadays, even the fittest people I know are emotionally weak. And because people go to the physical gym, they worry about what they eat. They go to the physical gym, but people forget to go to the emotional gym. And, the greats like Jim Rohn, even Tony Robbins' mentor, Jim Rohn, said, you've got to feed it and strengthen the mind and body daily. It was the mind and the body, not just the body. It's what are you feeding your mind day after day after day? If you're feeding it goodness and greatness and reading good books and watching good audios and watching documentaries and hanging in proximity to people moving in the direction you want to move, and focused on building your identity. What are my beliefs? Even challenging your beliefs. I know you and I were talking about that earlier, Heather, is people challenging their beliefs. Like, regularly I challenge my beliefs. Is that true? Well, how do I know that's true? Could it be false? And is it okay to challenge those? Yes, because is the world changing? A belief that served you a decade ago, with technology or the world changing or things around you changing, it could not serve you anymore. So we want to continue to keep discovering our identity and building it, continue to keep investigating our beliefs and updating them as the world changes, And then also, what are our values and are we living by them? And people go, how do you build that muscle? You do it every day. Every day I wake up and I have my I ams and I go, I am love, I am blessed, I am persistent, I am a freaking gladiator. I actually say I'm a fucking gladiator because it juices me a little bit more.
Yeah.
But every single day I'm love, I'm passionate, blessed, and persistent, I am a gladiator. And over, you say that. And then, then I can list off all my values, or I can talk about on a rant why I do what I do, or why I love lighting people on fire, or, why I love changing lives. And that fuels you and builds me of who I am and what I'm about. So when other people tend to second guess or question what I do, or, oh, that's so stupid or whatever, it just bounces off me. Like, I am who I am. I'm not going to change it for you or anybody else. Like, that's just the way it is. And you've just got to pick up that weight and just try that for the next 30 days. Come up with, a bunch of I ams and then narrow it down to 4 or 5 that really describe you. If you want to get greedy, maybe 5, 6, 7. But anything much more than 4 or 5, you tend to forget them. And then put them in order of what's most important to you. Like, I used to have passion in front of love, but I'm like, ultimately, everybody wants love. So why wouldn't I have love first? And then it was, I'm love, I'm passionate, blessed, I'm persistent, I'm a freaking gladiator. And I'll still go on rants and say 50 different I ams. But those are the 5 that really resonate with who I am, my identity, and the direction I'm headed. And by saying it every day, if somebody says something or somebody asks me to do something that doesn't align with me, it's just easy to say no. It's easy for anything somebody says to bounce off me. Where it bothers you is where you haven't built the muscle of what is my identity, what are my beliefs, and what are my values. That's where we tend to conform to those around us. And that's where we struggle. That's where, so many people, and I'm sure you get it as well, Heather, ask me, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay energized? That comes from the inside, that every day, if you remind yourself who you are, what you're about, what you're here, what you're put here for, what is your purpose? Screw your job. Job gets you just over broke. A career just gets you excited that, I have an important job. What's your purpose? What's fueling you in life? And when you discover your greatness, when you learn to just take that next step, and then every day you just focus on, hey, I'm going to be more of me today than I was yesterday. I'm going to leave everything on the field today. Because just like an athlete, you can win the game and not play your best. But you could lose a game and possibly feel greater than winning the game if you're being more of you, if you're laying more of you out on the field of life every single day. So many people nowadays, they go, oh gosh, I have trouble sleeping. How do you sleep? You know why most people are having trouble? They're not sleeping because they're not stepping into their greatness. They're not taking a step a day, and they're not just being them. They're so caught in what the world is doing and what influences them and what this person says or what that person says, that they get to the end of the day and they were only, playing at 25% of what they could play. You want to end every day on the field of life exhausted and sleep like a baby. You want to play full out. Don't hold back. And if you're not being you, you're going to leave something out there. Every day you want to be exhausted. People go, how do you go on low sleep or this or that? I tell them, because I'm excited to wake up and I'm too excited to go to bed. It's that simple. Because you're discovering more about the most important person, that you can go add value to others every day. Like, how can you be more of you? How can you add more value to everybody you run into? How can you share what is great inside of you, the greatness inside of you, with everybody? How can you take that next step and be more of you? And give every day, and even when you think, I don't know what to do or whatever, I don't care. Do everything you can that day. Do everything you can. Don't leave anything out there. We never know. Every day is a gift. That's why it's called the present. Right now, in this moment, is the present. So many people are focused on their BS story from the past, or gosh, but if I do that, what's up here? And they're focused on living in the past or the future, which neither of those will serve you. All that matters is now. There's a book out there, The Power of Now. What are you doing right now? And so many people are worried about past and the future. They never truly get the gift of life, which is just presence. What are you presently doing? How are you presently feeling? How are you presently showing up? And so be your best you. Fuck the rest of the world. Honestly, I mean, sorry about the language, but it needs to be said. Too many people are worried about what other people think. And that's to waste the person you are. And it literally makes my blood boil. And that's why I love traveling the planet, trying to light people on fire so they be more themselves. There's not a greater gift in the world to just be the person you are, step into your greatness, take a step every day and repeat those 3 things and build yourself so the world will be your playground and you won't let the world influence you. You'll influence it. Just like every great leader you think of and admire. They influenced the world. They didn't allow the world to influence them. Think of anybody you respect. They did these 3 things. Think of anybody you admire. Did the world influence them or did they influence the world around them? And that's my hope and my dream for each one that listens to this podcast, that from this day forward, you step into your greatness, you take your next step, and you become more of you so that you influence the world around you. You don't allow the world to influence you.
Luke, you are so passionate and fierce. I love it. And so many good takeaways. And that's funny. You said, fuck the world. Cause I posted a video today, fuck the naysayers. Like you've got to let go of them. But
you gotta let them feel you. I mean, and the other thing is, proximity is such power that, somebody once asked my eldest daughter, well, what does your dad do when people are, negative? How does he deal with his negative friends? She just laughed. She was like 13. She goes, my dad doesn't have negative friends. I mean, if friends aren't cheering me on and asking how they can help with my goal or focused on improving people's lives, they're just not in my proximity. Mm. And, some people got to require their friends in life to step up or step out, saying that's great. If you want to be negative and focus on what's wrong with the world, but I'm not going to limit my time with you. I'm going to be honest. And people go, oh, but that would really hurt their feelings. Okay, so you're serving them for allowing them to be less than they should be, allowing them to be negative, allowing them to focus on negativity, allowing them to bring down your negative energy. Is that really what you want in the future? So you've got to challenge them to step up. Give them the opportunity and then let them choose. You're not choosing for them. Yes. It's so huge, right? You gotta, and when you're always going to have naysayers. Somebody's always going to tell you you're crazy. Mm-hmm. You're crazy until you're right. So how you're starting to finally dream big enough and getting closer to your capability and truly stepping into yourself is when everybody calls you crazy. Well, good. I hope I'm crazy because I never want to be average. Fuck that shit. That sounds boring as hell to me.
Yes, high five. I would like to wrap up this interview with some rapid fire questions because I know we could talk for ages, but what is a quote or motto that you live by?
I think the one right behind me there that my daughter painted for me, because I always say it, it's one day or day one, you choose. Yep. You decide, or not you choose, you decide. One day or day one, you decide. And that's the choice we all have every day. I mean, people say tomorrow or I'll do it later. There is no tomorrow, people. You don't know if you're going to wake up tomorrow. Every day is a gift. Somebody didn't wake up today. People go, how can you be happy every day? I woke up. That's my role. Every day above ground is a great day. Yes. Like, I've had to lay my daughter on a hospital bed and haven't put her to sleep and not know if she's going to wake up after an 8-hour heart surgery. That's a bad day. Every other day is a great day. Like, you got to have some relativity, and the problem is most people haven't left the U.S. And if you haven't left the U.S., you don't have relativity that we live on one of the greatest, we live in one of the greatest countries in the world, that we're more blessed beyond means, that most people don't understand. 2/3 of the world is living on $2 a day. That we should wake up and with a smile on our face going, wow, we have food and we have water. We have clothes. Holy buckets, we're blessed. And when you start the day like that, it's a whole different day. So one day or day one, you decide.
What is a book you're currently reading or have read that you highly recommend?
Right now I'm reading a bunch of books on one that I'm reading is The Way of the Wolf, Jordan Belfort, good or bad with what he did with it. is very good at sales and influence and that type of thing. So I want to take those distinctions. But then the other books that I've really been stepping into is the work of Carl Jung and the archetypes, and really understanding how our psychology, is embedded in us, and that we all have these certain archetypes. And I've read, some of his books before about the archetypes, but really diving into it deeper because, I just really want to understand, which I've always been fascinated with. That's why I went to school, even though I didn't get a psychology degree. I'm only like 2 classes away from having a psychology degree, is what drives people, what's really going on in the embedding in our minds, because our minds are 2,000 years old, and how can the understanding that be used to help people discover more of their greatness, take the next step, and really become more of them, become the real you.
Yes, I've always been fascinated by psychology, so I get that. Final question to you. What advice would you give your younger self?
That's a great question. I would just say go now. Like, we've all had that moment that, we second guess or we put something off. Just do it now. Just go now. And that everything that's happening to you is happening to you for a reason. Life is happening for you, not to you, as Tony Robbins always says. And the thing is that realizing that we wouldn't be who we are if we didn't have setbacks. We wouldn't be who we were if we didn't make mistakes. So just go for it. Just go now. Don't hesitate. Don't wait. You never get time back. I don't regret anything I've ever done because it made me who I am today. But if I were to tell my younger self, I think I could have affected more people. I think it could have made a bigger influence if I would have just told myself, go now, don't hesitate.
Yes. What a high note to leave on. Luke, thank you so much for your time today and sharing all of your insight.
Well, thank you for having me, Heather. And I love what you're doing to add value to people. So anytime you need me, just let me know. And thank you, everybody that listened today. And make your life extraordinary. Make it outstanding. And it's 3 simple things. Step into your greatness, take your next step, and just be more of you every single day and leave it all out on the battlefield.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me, Heather.